Pittsburgh Steelers are moving forward without Kenny Pickett, and right now it's Mitch Trubisky, but the big question is it always going to be Mitch Trubisky, and how short is the leash before the Pittsburgh Steelers just try to figure out a quarterback situation? What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they lose Kenny Pickett for roughly a month as he undergoes surgery on his sprained ankle. Worst case scenario was avoided for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At first glance, this looked like he could get shut down for the entire season. Now it's looking like 2 to 4 weeks, but things are very interesting right now when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation. Reports have come out that maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers were considering a quarterback change before the injury and before the firing of Matt Canada. Now Mitch Trubisky is their guy. Mason Rudolph is probably the fan favorite amongst the fan base, which is wild to say because you just go back 2, maybe 3 years and there was a lot of people sitting around going, why would the Steelers even consider having Mason Rudolph on their roster? Here they are. The situation has presented itself. Moving forward, it will be Mitch Trubisky as the starter. The big question, how short is the leash? Will the Pittsburgh Steelers ever consider making Mason Rudolph their starter? And when Kenny returns, is he guaranteed to take back over instead of Mitch Trubisky? Let's start there. Reports have emerged from Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulac, who has all the insight, who is constantly dropping bombs, and this time dropped another one, that the Pittsburgh Steelers, before Kenny Pickett's injury, before they fired Matt Canada, were considering a change at quarterback. They looked at the situation, and they just thought, okay, maybe it's time to make Kenny Pickett the backup and to make a change because Kenny Pickett was struggling in 3-4 consecutive games. Instead, after conversations, they decided to relieve Matt Canada of his duties, kind of giving Kenny Pickett that last opportunity, that last hurrah. Hey, a significant change. Maybe that's what they need to happen. Maybe that sets a spark in their first-round quarterback. And everybody knows when it comes to a first-round quarterback or an offensive coordinator, you're always going to pick your first-round quarterback first. That's just what's going to happen. And in this situation, that's the direction that they went. But they were considering a change. So now the big question becomes, okay, Kenny Pickett is injured. Mitch Trubisky is about to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's got 2 games minimum, possibly 4. In those 4 games, it could go one of 2 ways. Either Mitch Trubisky in 4 weeks we're talking about, or within that 4 weeks, we're talking about, hey, should Mason Rudolph start? How much longer do the Pittsburgh Steelers have to just go through torture with Mitch Trubisky before they make a move at quarterback and finally give Mason Rudolph an opportunity that fans want Mason Rudolph to have? Or it could go the complete opposite, and Mason Rudolph, or Mitch Trubisky, can be sitting around, and in 4 weeks there could be a true, real conversation about whether or not Kenny Pickett is going to resume responsibilities as the starter, or if his time in Pittsburgh this season has come to an end and it is Mitch Trubisky's job moving forward. Maybe getting cool outside, but it's red hot on the field. So there's no better time than now to announce that today we've partnered with DraftKings, an official partner of the NFL. And thanks to DraftKings, we're bringing you even closer to the action. Right now, new customers who bet $5 will get $150 in bonus bets instantly. You heard that right, instantly. But that's not all. If you're already a DraftKings customer, you get a no-sweat same-game parlay. Get a bonus bet back if your same-game parlay / same-game parlay X doesn't hit. Max reward limits do apply. And if you're a multi-sport bettor, no worries. DraftKings allows you to combine multiple bets for a shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers who use our promo code ALLSteelers and bet $5 will get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSteelers, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. As crazy as it sounds, both scenarios are probably just as likely to happen as the other. Let's start with the Kenny Pickett. where does Mitch Trubisky need to do? What does he need to do in order to retain the starting job and kind of shut Kenny Pickett down, move him to QB2? Honestly, he's just got to throw touchdowns. I think that's the easiest way to put it. If they go to Indianapolis, New England should be an easy game, but the Pittsburgh Steelers don't have easy games. If they host New England, if they go to Indianapolis, if they go or they come back and play Cincinnati, in those 3 games, if Mitch Trubisky just goes off, has great days, doesn't throw interceptions, and instead throws touchdowns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers offense is able to score some points, I don't see how you put Kenny Pickett back in the ballgame, and I think that's how fine the line is when it comes to whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers are considering a quarterback change. I think they could look at this situation and go, hey, if we score 24 points, 25 points in the next 3 weeks, and Mitch Trubisky's throwing a touchdown, 2 touchdowns a game, and the wide receivers are happy and there's no drama and the running game is still being the running game, I don't understand how you make the move. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have the same thought. There's no way that you go back and take a risk for a quarterback who has struggled. It's not like Kenny Pickett has shown that he's a good quarterback. Instead, it's been the complete opposite. He has regressed tremendously this season. And even after one game, one little spark in Cincinnati, it went right back to Kenny Pickett missing wide open receivers. Kenny Pickett trying to avoid pressure and instead finding more of it. Kenny Pickett just seemingly being lost and like the game is moving way too fast for him. He's not confident out there. This is not a team that is given to Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett has not won the job for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mitch Trubisky lost it at the beginning of or in the middle of last season, and they just said, why would we go back? Kenny Pickett is our first-round quarterback. We have to give him every opportunity we could possibly give him. And we all know Mike Tomlin is as stubborn as it comes, and it's to a fault 99% of the time. In this situation, I think there are more powers at hand pulling and influencing the final decision. If Mitch Trubisky goes off, if it is a Mitch Trubisky show over the next 3 weeks, which I get it. Like that is such a tall tale. That is such a huge task, or maybe an impossible thought to some. But if it happens, if he looks good and if he doesn't throw interceptions and if the Steelers are winning by margins because of their offense, I don't see how the Pittsburgh Steelers go back. And I think that that's a real possibility if Trubisky shows up. Now, the other side of this, when does Mason Rudolph step in? Well, I think Mitch Trubisky's leash is very, very short. And I think that if he starts throwing interceptions, especially early, it's going to be Mason Rudolph's job. And the Steelers are going to make the move to turn to Mason Rudolph and just say, hey, look, this is probably the last case scenario that we want to have happen. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have shown that. I mean, even Mike Tomlin's answer yesterday when asked about who Mason Rudolph is was just all about, hey, well, he's comfortable and he plays scout team.
You know, we've got experience with him. He's got experience with us within our program. He's a good idea guy. He's a good sounding board for the guys that are in. And so, you know, it's a real comfortable thing for us with his presence and him being elevated, no doubt.
The Pittsburgh Steelers have never really shown the respect to Mason Rudolph, and I don't think he's necessarily earned it. I'm not sitting around thinking, hey, Mason Rudolph he deserves an opportunity. I don't think that has been earned. What I do think is that the quarterback 1 and quarterback 2 have ruined their opportunity enough for Mason Rudolph not to be a bad option at this point in the season or this time frame for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that if Mitch Trubisky starts throwing interceptions and ruining the offensive flow even more than it is, creating turnovers and just giving the defense more work that needs to be accomplished and done and held, I think that they turn to Mason Rudolph rather quickly. There's no reason to stay loyal to Mitch Trubisky. You're in the midst of a playoff hunt. You are currently sitting in a playoff seed. You cannot ruin that opportunity, and I don't think the Steelers would try to. I think Mike Tomlin is smart enough to understand that it's just about getting into the dance no matter how you got to get in there. And he's going to look at this and he's going to say, if Mason Rudolph is just going to not lose us games, that's better than Mitch Trubisky losing us games. And that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers stand. That is just as likely to happen as Mitch going out there, balling out, and taking over the job from Kenny Pickett. For everybody sitting around thinking, oh man, this is bad. I think it maybe is bad, but at the same time, the Pittsburgh Steelers were ready to make the move, and maybe they were in this situation either way heading into this week if Kenny Pickett had a terrible second half against the Arizona Cardinals. You just never know. So things are wide open. And storyline-wise, potential-wise, I get who Kenny Pickett is. I get the upside of Kenny Pickett. The Pittsburgh Steelers are just looking to win football games. They're not looking to take any chances anymore. They're not looking for some magical spark from somebody that's going to last 2 games or whatever. They're not looking for fourth quarter Kenny. They're just looking for a quarterback who's going to win some football games, and they do not care what quarterback that is. At this point in the season, Kenny Pickett's job is not secure. Mitch Trubisky's job is definitely not secure, and Mason Rudolph might get an opportunity. Anything could happen because the Pittsburgh Steelers are worried about one thing and one thing only, and that is winning.